Hello, it's Peter Merrick. Let's talk about movies. Let's talk about television. Have you noticed over the last 2 decades, everything is either apocalyptic or demonic? Everything. It's not fun. It's not happy. It's not a great ending. It's all been negative. Now, back in the 1970s, they had Senate and congressional hearings on MK Ultra. And what was asked of the head of the CIA is if they employed anybody working for the major network news departments. And what came out of that is the individual being interviewed said yes, and can we please move to a closed session? So, do you really think that we've been really told what we're supposed to be told? I used to do a lot of television. I used to be on television twice a week. And let me just share with you about that experience. It was a lie. They just needed a talking head, and I was very glad to be that talking head. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I know one thing. The people reading from those teleprompters were even stupider than me. Literally. Some of them were attractive. Most of them were just really good at just reading off of a screen. They never really thought what they did. And they truly believed that what they were doing had value. I posted something recently, and one of the top anchors in Canada on CTV contacted me. So I contacted him back. He didn't want to engage because he was participating. He didn't like hearing that he was a participant, but he was. What's happened in Canada? Well, a bill was secretly passed. It was called C11, Controls Information for the Public Good. The media took in bailouts several billion dollars over the last several years. But they have to actually follow what the government tells them that they have to speak about. On top of that, there's the CBC, receives billions every year. And you think they have choice? You think they allow an alternative narrative? They don't. They don't. So I remember the first time I started watching all these shows and realizing every time I saw these shows, I got depressed because they showed about a terrible world, the world that we were going to live in. You know what I think about? A few years ago, Amazon had a series, and it was called The Man in the High Castle. And it was a story about what if the Axis powers won. Meaning, what happened if Japan and Germany won the war? And they showed a pretty demonic world. I remember watching it saying, well, thank God we won. Well, you know, that series has been over for a while. And the question now is maybe they did win because the world that we're experiencing is the world that was portrayed in that mini series, that docudrama. You know, it's really interesting how we're told what they're going to do to us. Isn't that really interesting? I find that sort of creepy. That when you start looking at the news and you start reading documents and you start asking questions, you find out that there's almost an unwritten rule or an unconscious rule, something that's not said, that if they tell you what they plan to do to you and you choose not to do anything, you choose not to say no, they look at that as your consent. Now, let me give you a very practical example. If you were a little kid and your parents went into the bank and opened up a bank account, you're a minor, so the bank is responsible and you cannot be held responsible until you're 18. However, if you do not go into the bank or notify the bank that you do not want the responsibilities of an adult and you did not agree to what your parents had actually signed you up for, guess what? They consider that your consent. The same thing happens with US citizenship. If you're born to an American through birth or the fact that they have chose to be naturalized and you've never been to the United States, you are deemed American. Now you have 6 months to renounce your citizenship. And after that, you are on the hook for the rest of your life. These are just basic concepts, and they've been applied to things that happen to be more demonic. We're being told, we're made to feel bad for our existence. You know, one of the messages that come out is we are a virus. I don't see a child as a virus. I don't see myself as a virus. I see us as divine. So I bought into the environmental movement. I used to speak for the Socially Responsible Organization in Canada. I used to be a regular on a program started by an individual who started Greenpeace. And one of the things I kept on hearing is for us to continue living on this planet, we would need approximately 5.5 times more planets. I don't see a problem. Human ingenuity has provided food, comfort, lodging, but this is what we were told. You know what that means? It means that there's 80% too many of us. The question is, who gets to decide? Well, guess what? There's certain groups, certain people who've been telling us. I saw the environmental conference being held last summer, and Prince Charles got up saying that we have to mobilize the world economies and we're going to have to tighten our belts. Could you imagine the audacity of that man? Just because he was the fastest swimmer on that particular day with his so called father, Mr. Creep himself, Prince Philip, and his creepy mother, Elizabeth, he feels he has the right to tell the rest of us that we should cut back. And this man here is, well, let me just explain something to you. See, they don't show us the royals, they show us how they live. But you know, it's pretty peculiar that they live on these huge, huge estates and they love to hunt. And in a given weekend, they'll kill 200 boars and foxes. They don't eat it. They basically go and they, just like when they go and they visit their subjects, they go and they probably feed and give, a little pat on the head of these animals that they massacre. And then we have Prince Harry. I find this pretty creepy. Here's a prince who went to Afghanistan. And they have a PR department. And this PR department said he flew helicopters, attack helicopters. Now you think they would put a prince in harm's way? No. They were having him satisfy his blood thirst. You heard me say it. He's going into these innocent people in villages and he was killing them no different than if I was to play a video game. But his bloodthirst required that he do it himself. And now we're told that he feels bad because his mother died when he was young. No, I think a bit of humanity has come about because he knows what he did. But it's not his fault. He was born into it. Well, I'm fortunate that I wasn't born into it, and either were you. So you have a choice. The choice is, are you going to be watching this filth and doing nothing, being an individual sitting on the bleachers, even worse, cheering on the opposing side that does not want you alive. You're going to get on the field, be heard, and be part of a group of people that if humanity survives, they will tell stories about how humanity woke up. See, this temporal experience is temporary. Your soul is infinite. Every tyranny ends when good people say, I will not participate, I will not acquiesce to evil. Always ends that way. So, you're going to do something? Because I know that time is running out. If you don't believe me, do your own research. There's certain plans for the rest of us. And that happens to be, I got the number wrong. I thought it was 14, 15. It's 15th, 16th of us that they believe that there's too many of us. Have a good evening and take action before it's too late.